Welcome to Aligned with Kell Quarrell, the podcast where we talk all things small business. It's a mix of mindset, empowerment, real conversations, and of course, alignment. I'm your host, Kell Quarrell, a businesswoman with close to 20 years of business experience. Get ready for a mix of solo deep dives and inspiring interviews with awesome guests who will share how they have aligned their businesses with the lives they love. Let's dive in to align your business with the life you've always wanted. Welcome to another episode of Aligned with Kell Quarrell. Today, I have the absolute pleasure to be joined by Clare Martin. Clare is a transformational coach and the founder of The Abundant Soul. Clare specializes in removing resistance and blocks to empower entrepreneurs, creatives, and purpose seekers to live an optimal life of inner and outer world health. Clare believes life should be a hustle of the heart, and she helps heart-led leaders set solid foundations for success, gain clarity and direction, and align their life and business to actualize their passion, purpose, and full potential using the power of the mind and the body-mind. Welcome, Clare. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So before we get started, I just want to share with the listeners that Clare and I first connected 6 years ago. So before we hit record on today's episode, Clare actually jumped into her computer to look up my history. And I first met Clare when you were tattooing my eyebrows, which was my first tattoo experience. You're absolutely incredible at it. And so we've stayed connected since then, which is kind of like mind-blowing, really.
I know, it is. Hasn't time gone by quick? And so many transitions for both of us, which has been so awesome. But yeah, it's crazy how quick that time's gone. And yeah, it was such a beautiful opportunity. It was so lovely to be involved in cosmetic tattooing because it's really, it's been a great opportunity for me.
And it was interesting. I was just asking Clare, do you still do it? And she does. And she does that because she absolutely loves it. She's very passionate about it. She's absolutely incredible at it as well. But you were saying that you love the connection with the women, when they're on the bed and just having that conversation back and forth. So I hope today is like just an extension of that. Whilst we're here, it's just going to be very conversational. Yeah. But I wanted to start with asking you a little bit more about the abundant soul. Can you share with me and the listeners, what's led you to creating the abundant soul, and give us a little bit more information about what that is?
Yeah, I mean, the abundant soul, I think it was actually really birthed from doing cosmetic tattooing and being around women. I think working on something like your eyebrows and doing something where someone has to have so much faith and trust in you. I sort of found myself in situations with women where we were really opening up and being very honest. I guess that bond of trust really opens up much deeper conversations. And so my interest really peaked around, I guess, like human behavior and especially around women and how they hold themselves back, how they're blocked, how they sort of face resistance, and how similar the challenges between women were, the fears, what they were facing, the way they were thinking and living. And I became very curious about human behavior. And at the same time, at about the time I met you, actually, I was going through a huge personal transformation. So I was separating from my husband. I felt very lost in my life, if I'm honest, at that point. I had this beautiful career, but I was very disconnected from myself. I'd found myself very much hustling in life. And I think at that point, I was very, very, very overwhelmed. And in my personal life and my business life, I've been driven a lot by fear. And I found myself in this void where I was constantly pursuing things outside of myself to fill this bucket that was never, ever fulfilled. It was a constant, because it was ego fear-led. It was always hungry. And it was like this beast that I felt like was driving me quite a lot. And I could feel myself in the similarities in myself, in my clients, reflecting that back to me, mirroring it back. And so, yeah, that really is where the journey, the inquiry began into human behavior. And I began to sort of go into my own personal development a lot more deeply with a spiritual aspect, I guess, as well. It began with an interest in consciousness and becoming consciously aware of how we think, how we live, our beliefs, how they imprint on our lives, how our past imprints on our current present life. And it really just snowballed from there. I just found myself just going, wow, this is amazing. I trained as a consciousness coach through COVID, which was the biggest crack open I
Yes.
could, I could have possibly have encountered. Around that time, I did lose my marriage collapsed. I lost my family home that I built with my husband. My dog passed away, and then my business closed in tattooing. So it was like this huge, just crack open of, okay, now there's me.
Yes.
And it was just so profound how that journey began. And then I started the consciousness coach diploma. And yet it escalated from there, really. That's where it all began. And the abundant soul was born from that.
Yeah, incredible. It's so interesting to me where often that COVID timeframe,
Mm,
for so many people, there was just so much shift. Like,
yeah.
and I mean, some incredibly difficult things happened for a lot of people. And,
Mm,
I was, as you know, in the personal development industry running live events for women, and our business closed practically overnight as well. And very grateful to have relaunched that this year, which we was definitely not on the agenda, but as life would have it, both really passionate and driven to relaunch that. I'd love to know, what did you tap into in those early stages where you were curious and you were like, I'm being mirrored back things in my life from my clients. Where did you go to kind of tap into explore what was coming up for you?
Well, for me, the first thing that I kind of went into, which was a big shift for me, was something called soul imprints, which is something I do now. And this was really understanding how past imprints or imprints from the past in sort of your caregivers around a young age, how those imprints really molded and uh, gave me a perception of my reality and how I perceived my life to be. So that was such a huge awakening for me, was to see that the way I saw and perceived my life was through the lens of my beliefs, and how I could change my reality very fast by rewiring those beliefs.
Hmm.
That was definitely for me the first big aha moment, and very much connecting into the present. I always say that the most simplest of tools that I think there is out there is to be present, to become mindful of the now moment. And I was not mindful of that at all. I was always in fear of the future or anxiety of my past. And, that definitely imprinted on my relationships.
Hmm.
My actual beliefs were imprinting on my reality and through my relationships, the way I was showing love and care, or perhaps I wasn't open to receiving love, and what I actually felt within myself, and how disconnected I was to my heart. I just felt very unattached and dissociated from my spiritual self and my soul. I just had lost my path, and
Hmm.
reconnecting with that part of me was huge, and
Hmm.
it opened my heart, and I sort of began to get curious around myself, asking, why do I act this way, why do I react this way, why am I having these circumstances play out in my life? What are they teaching me? What's the wisdom to learn, and what's the evolution of that lesson? Because the challenges were coming thick and fast, and I was in the very much why me,
Yes.
the victim mentality. And I really I was really in that. And I was very, very victim mindset. I was a big empath. I was very boundaryless.
Hmm.
And, it was all about pleasing other people and not myself, and giving my power away. And, it unfolded. The deeper I dug and the more I looked into these past imprints, I could really start to say, wow, I could have compassion for that part of me, because for so long I had, I guess, demonized that part of me and thought
Yes.
it was bad or wrong. And I was, weak. And I would label myself with these things of not being powerful, not being, standing for myself, standing for my truth. and I didn't really know how to have boundaries without going into being really rigid within
Yes.
who I was. So
Yes.
I would go on this pendulum of like being completely one way and then going completely the other way, and not finding that the middle path. So that the soul imprints part was massive.
Hmm.
And then I began very aware of the way my mind was working. And that led me on to sort of become curious about the body mind. So I was sort of really leaning into then the thoughts, the wiring of the mind, and how we self sabotage, how we get in our own way, how we create our own resistance in our life, how our life's reflecting back to us, the resistance
Yes.
that we have in every single scenario that we're in. And then it just grew from there
Yeah,
massively.
I love that. And so, how do you work with entrepreneurs and creatives and, these kind of purpose led people in the world? How do you actually work with them?
So, something that I discovered through my own path and through being an entrepreneur myself, and what I would consider quite a creative, I think we're all creators
Yes.
basically. So, we're all creatives in some way. But for me, I knew that I was getting in my own way a lot, that the inner critic and my own beliefs were creating blocks. And so the resistance part of the process of transformation became very interesting to me. And I started to dive really deep, working with big mentors in the transformational space myself, into why do we have resistance? Where does it come from? Which parts of the brain does that affect? And how can we really rewire these habits successfully, quickly, and permanently, so that we're not then repeating, those toxic patterns and loops. So I really help entrepreneurs and creatives to remove resistance,
Hmm.
to find out and discover where are their blocks, why are they there, and how can we rewire the brain to get you on track, and
Hmm.
most importantly in alignment with your joy. Because I think that's something we have all become very disconnected from, is understanding what is it that brings us joy daily. And when we tap into the heart and we access the joy and we follow the joy constantly, we always realigning to the joy and moving in alignment to that, and we take aligned action towards that, your life changes. You create in what I call inner world wealth. This
Mm.
is like aligning your inner compass first, and then attracting from the outside, and then creating the abundance from the outside. But to me, it has to come from within. And
Yes.
I think we've been very programmed to think that when we get the outer reward, that's when we're happy, that's when we're
Yes.
satisfied, that's when we reach the goal. And as we well know, we get to that goal when we feel very unfulfilled. This was definitely my story. And I had been disconnected from that inner part of me. So I help creatives to really align to the heart,
Hmm.
and I also now help them with the body mind aspect, that is helping them move through the blocks in the body mind, because of our nervous system, our subconscious body mind. The innate wisdom of the body can also hold us back in our life. So it's not just mind, it's like bridging the gap between that heart mind coherence, bringing that back on board, and working with the body mind as well, which is a very new concept for CEOs and creatives.
Yes.
It's a very new way of working, I feel.
Absolutely. But one I believe will become the way of the future. And I
100%.
love what you said then about always aligning back to the joy and allowing that to be the compass or the North Star. And it's very much what I do with human design as well,
Yes.
is, really, particularly for me as a sacral generator, it is all about my sacral joy and doing those things that light me up and that I'm passionate and excited about.
Mm.
And, I think over time, because of conditioning or societal pressures, etc., that has been something that a lot of people have become disconnected with. As you said, it's not allowing that. Well, that sounds like fun, that's what I want to
Mm.
do. Does that make logical sense? Oh, well, I'll go back down this path because that's what people tell me I should do, etc. So I love that you're talking about allowing the joy to
Mm.
be your North Star. That's beautiful. So I'm assuming there is a lot of somatic work that is what you do with entrepreneurs and these types of people you work with.
Yes. So there's a blend of definitely like the neural rewiring that happens through holistic tools that I use. I basically really help people align to their values. So again, that's an alignment tool for going back to joy. And we really help people to move through something called shadow values, which are values that are driven from your shadow self, which are
Mm-hmm.
still there, which we often reject or suppress or deny. And by utilizing those values from our shadows, we can actually leverage them to move towards our joy even more and very effectively and powerfully. And then I work with the body mind with breath work to really create safety in the nervous system, to utilize the body mind system to bring you back on board so that your whole heart mind coherence is in balance and you're all on the same track. With the body mind, it has the ability to go into fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, these stress responses. And so many people are in their stress responses all the time. We're in
Mm.
survival mode. And so we're very wired to be in what's called high beta brainwaves, which are linked to depression. When we're in these high beta states, when our body is dysregulated, when we're feeling survival and we're in all these fight, flight, fawn, or freeze constantly, then we're going into coping mechanisms constantly. And, eventually this depletes our nervous system
Yes.
is out of whack. We sort of high cortisol levels, waking up at 3 a.m., not being able to have any energy, experiencing fatigue. It's just like this huge snowball. So the somatic part of the work, I think, is vital
Yes.
for really creating leaders who have effortless energy, like this well that you can tap into by shifting your state, by bringing yourself perhaps down into alpha brainwave, which is where we're really intuitive, we're really creative, we're getting lots of downloads and ideas, regulating the nervous system to move through resistance so that it becomes familiar, and we widen our window of tolerance through the body mind. And then creating that coherence with the neural work as well, I just feel like is this amazing recipe for success. And
Mm.
I call it becoming like superhuman. It's
Yes.
really tapping into this part of us that we really haven't brought in before, and it's being driven through a very different space. You mentioned something earlier, which I find is really profound in the way to think, is that so many of us are driven through our wounds. We're
Mm.
actually driven through this need to have have that sort of validation or to be seen as something rather than to feel it from the inside. So we're really shifting that place from being driven from a wounded space to being driven from a very loving space and a very balanced space that's in constant homeostasis and working together, which is, of course, vital for your longevity and your what I call your health span, keeping
Yes.
everything in check within your body.
Absolutely. I love that. So tell me, what has changed in your life since finding this work? And obviously, even though you are still doing the cosmetic tattooing in a smaller form, what has changed in your business and your life since finding this new path?
Oh God, where to
Big
start?
question.
Yeah. Um, I think the way I perceive life has shifted dramatically. I'm very much more in the moment. I live in a day-to-day basis. I do plan for the future. I have goals and dreams that I aim for that are aligned for me. And I think, I didn't really live a life of alignment based on my wants and needs and joys. That was very much a new direction for me, was to actually discover what I loved and what lit me up
Hmm.
and to move in that direction without guilt.
Yes.
um, to learn how to overcome that resistance that appears, to trust myself. So surrender and grace have been like two huge learning curves for me. I did not operate from a place of surrender. I was very much attached to how things were supposed to work.
Hmm.
So, of course, when things went wrong and it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, which it never does, it would become very dysregulated in myself. That would cause me to force and push the outcome.
Yes.
So I've actually rewired the way I approach my creative outlet, which is my work, and that it's very much like I have a goal, but I'm not attached to the how. I just move constantly in that direction, that alignment,
Yes.
and let that path unfold
Yes.
rather than forcing and pushing something that I think is the right thing to do. And I'm rather moving into that, I trust this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Absolutely. Yes.
Takes A lot of practice, and I'm not perfect. I still absolutely fall into the doing and the forcing. And I feel different when I'm in that space. I can
Mm,
notice it in every part of me. The way in which I approach the work is different. And then of course the result is different and how you attract is different. It's just so fascinating to watch when I'm in these different states now.
yes,
And then what comes towards me when I'm in the right state and I'm
yes,
tapped into that higher mind and I'm really, really leaning in and trusting the process and
yes,
knowing that that goal is still there and I can still get to that goal. But how I get to that goal is not laid out like a little pathway.
yes.
It's going to just chop and change, and I've got to go with the flow.
Yeah, I love
That's challenging.
that. Yeah. And I'm assuming that's very different to how you were like,
Completely,
yes, yeah, I love that.
100%.
Tell me, what is it that really excites you? Like, what is it that brings you the most amount of joy?
Oh gosh, what brings me the most amount of joy is knowing how expansive and huge your life can be if you allow it to be. Is that you really are the creator of your life. I've been in the place where I think like destroyed myself. I've been in that place. I've had bulimia. I've had, panic attacks. I've had adrenal fatigue. I've been in that place that's really dark. And to know that you can move out of that space without being medicated, without, without sort of relying on others
Hmm.
and coming back to your power within you excites me because I feel like there's so much potential for everybody out there to create the reality they want. Like if you want to start work at 10 a.m., you can. If you want to work 3 days a week, you can. If you want to work 10 days a week and be loving what you're doing, you can. If you want to be located all over the world, you can do it. It's really sort of deciding what's the life that you want to live, what really matters to you the most, what's the feeling you want to have every day, because you can access that now. You don't
Hmm.
have to wait for the outcome to come to you to have that.
Yes,
It's something that is within you today, right now. And if you know the tools, you can get to that immediately. So that excites me for humanity because so many people are lost right now. So many people are just doing the thing and feeling empty and like they're not connected or excited. And I know there was a time where I just felt like I'd flatlined. I
mm,
felt like I had no up and down even at all. I was so numbed out and so out of body. And so it excites me that people can find that beautiful life within them again and really, really create what they want and tap into that today.
yeah, that's powerful. Outside of your work, and obviously, as you said, like that creative state, which is your work,
Mm.
what do you love to do? How do you love to spend your time?
I love being in nature. It's definitely my savior. It sounds cliche, but I love to walk. I love to move my body. I love to be in the sunshine. Kel, one of my goals
Yes.
is to move to the Gold Coast, and it's happening. It's actually
Oh, it is
happening.
happening. Amazing.
It's
Okay, that's
happening.
exciting.
So I just love being outside. I love connecting, like honestly, I don't really have like a line between work and passion.
Mm,
They're both blended. So there isn't really like now I'm working and now I'm enjoying. They're both
yes,
blended for me. So I really love learning.
yes,
Superiority is one of my shadow values. So I sort of leverage the tapping into the healthy side of my shadow value of superiority by learning. I love listening to podcasts. I love exploring how we can biohack our lives and live healthier, live longer, live happier. So that's always something that I just naturally do in my pastime and obviously dive into breath work, community,
yes.
as much as I possibly can, get involved in community where I can. So yeah, they're my pastimes, hiking, all those things, waterfalls, love waterfalls, they're my jam.
Well,
And
you'll
yeah,
love it. You'll
just
love it up here.
I will. I won't be indoors at all. So yeah, I'm really an outdoor human and I love travel. I absolutely love it.
Yes. Yeah. We are very similar in many of those things. I equally love being outside. I love the sunshine. I also love hiking, which my two teenage daughters do not like so much anymore. So it's a little bit of one of those things now. It's like, uh, we'll say, "Oh, let's go and do something." They're like, "We're not hiking." I was like, "Okay." So they might have to stay at home a little bit. But it is, I find all of those things just incredibly rejuvenating, certainly
Mm,
for, the way that I'm wired. So I'm all for all of that. I see you also said travel, which is a huge sort of driving force in my life. I absolutely love travel, adventure, exploring, seeing new places. But even just, having the ability to jump on a plane and go somewhere even not so far, I just find absolutely exciting. I was actually reflecting before we jumped on this morning, and I was like, wow, I go to um, Albury on Saturday, which you're actually going to be in Albury as well, which is crazy. But that's via Sydney, and then I come back. I'm possibly going to Brisbane, driving to Brisbane this afternoon. I go to Moreton Island next week. I'm just like,
oh,
what is life? Like,
yes.
to be able to jump on a plane, go and spend the weekend with my best friend, go to a client's wedding. Like, it's just, I think, what you were saying before is to know that you can create the life that
Mm,
excites you and brings you joy. And so many people, I feel, are very disconnected from that. There's,
mm,
even the women that I get to work with in their businesses, they're so programmed to do things the way that things have always been done, or
yeah,
are adopting strategies because someone else told them that if you follow all of these steps, then success, is going to come. But they're doing it from a space where they're depleted, they're not
yeah.
excited, the growth isn't sustainable. They're
Mm,
just not lit up. They've lost their passion for what it is that they got into business for in the first place. And so
yeah.
I love of everything that you've been talking about, because it's all coming back to, that internal joy, and using that as their decision making process. Like, am I going to be
Mm,
lit up by this? Do I have the energy for this? Does this feel aligned? And I do very similar things within the human design space. And you're doing it from another angle, but I just think it's all leading to women, for me, and people like in general that you work with, just living a far happier life, which for the collective on this planet
yes.
in this lifetime is a great thing. When
Oh,
we've got people
absolutely.
that are just, happier and, vibing at a higher energetic level, we
Yeah.
all get to benefit from that.
We do, and it's our birthright. It's like it's absolutely our birthright, and we've forgotten. We've
Mm,
forgotten what that birthright is, and we have become so. And a lot of this is programming. A lot of this is outside forces. That we've been reduced to fear, so we've become more reliant on those outside forces from a fear-based lens. We're controllable, and so for me, the real, like, I'm quite a rebel. I like to
yes.
be rebellious, and I'm kind of a little hidden rebel in that I like to go against the authority, and I like to question authority. I'm like, is that really what I want for me? Like, is that do I want the mortgage? Do I want the house? Do I
Yeah.
and what is right for me? Is living in a van right for me? Is traveling the world and being a nomad right for me? Is having the mortgage and living in a house right for me? Is really questioning yourself and going, where have I been programmed to think this is what my life should be? And where could I investigate and become curious about what potentially my life could be like? And my human design, I'm a Manny Jenny,
Ah, yes.
6'2". So,
Of course. Yeah. Beautiful
so
62. Yep.
yeah, and even my human design for me was a big eye opener. It was such, and I read it and I felt like I'd come home to myself when I read my blueprint. I was like, there I am. That's it. You read it, and when you're doing your human design, it lights up this part of you, and you're like, that's who I am. That's who I'm meant to be. That's my soul. That's my soul calling. That's my purpose. Down to
Mm,
such finite things like,
yes.
I know that my blueprint and looking into my gene keys was like, I like to be in light spaces, and it's so true for me. I need to be in like light flooded rooms
Yes.
and bright space, sunshine, all of the things. the water being the element, all of these other aspects of human design that for me really helped me to tap into what could that potential look like. Because sometimes it's hard to imagine when we're so programmed
100%.
we're so programmed into thinking certain ways. We struggle to see what our potential can be and what that could look like. So for me, human design was like this beautiful guide of where I could open my eyes to my potential as well.
Absolutely. And I think for me, working with women in business, they often question, really? It can be that easy. Like if
Yeah.
I'm just following, like even their authority, their decision making process, if
Yeah.
you're a sacral authority, you're going to know the answer in the moment. It's going to be yes or no. It is that easy. However, we have been conditioned, and even our beautiful emotional authorities, 53% of the population, they need time and space to land in emotional clarity when making
Mm.
decisions. So even you look at the very vast differences between those two, sacral and emotional. One's making, immediate decisions. The other one needs time and space. If you're not aware of that, how much we can condition each other. Like, are you sure you don't need time to think about that if you're a sacral? And then for the emotionals, it's like, really, you're still not deciding, you still haven't got a decision yet. And so there's just, these
Mm.
beautiful things that you said is like permission to explore your human design and look at your life through the lens of your soul blueprint. And it can just be so affirming. And I just,
Absolutely.
I absolutely love it. And I think when people lean into it and experiment with their own human design,
Yeah.
they find this freedom within
Absolutely.
within that. And I love that you focus a lot on conditioning and
Mm.
past, experiences that we have. And we all have something, right? We all have
Absolutely. Oh,
something.
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we've
And
all got the thing that's holding us back, that core wound that is just, oh, it's still there.
And I think, a lot of people that I speak with, both in She Can and also my own business, is they'll often say, but I didn't really have any trauma in my life, or I don't have
Mm,
childhood trauma. And, and I say, that's amazing. Like, that's incredible that you haven't. And I would say the same.
so would I.
But we don't need to have this perceived trauma to still have things that have occurred that we've given meaning to, that are, forming our beliefs, that are kind of still at the driver's wheel in our 30s and 40s and, and beyond. So I feel like,
Mm,
what you've been sharing is, it's not, you don't have to have trauma to have
no, not at
these
all.
these old beliefs that are holding us back.
No, no, and it's all about perception. I had a beautiful family with a beautiful upbringing, but my parents were very, they were big empaths. They were scared to speak their truth. They were scared to self-express, and beautiful and kind and ever so lovely, but so people pleasing, And I inherited that.
Mm.
I was under the impression that we self-abandon to make other people happy. You don't talk about your emotions. You give the she'll be right attitude, just don't worry, you'll be okay. You've got it good. You're lucky in your life.
Yes.
Yeah, and no, and all of these sorts of things. And obviously, I grew up where my dad was very sort of like it was all about grades at school. It was very much about being the IQ, nothing about EQ.
Yeah.
And now I'm completely opposite. I'm think your EQ is the most important driver in your life. Understanding it is way surpasses your IQ.
Yes.
And when you get those two right, you are kicking goals. Your emotional intelligence is so powerful.
Yes.
And yeah, you're so right. The perception of your childhood and what you perceive, until you really look at it and you break it down, and you break down your relationship with your caregivers and how your caregivers were to each other, how their caregivers were to them, your grandparents or whoever that is, then it just you're just like, wow, I didn't think there was stuff there, but now I can see where my perceptions of my life have come from and how
Absolutely.
I've remodeled those behaviors in my life, and perhaps it hasn't favored me. And we break those ancestral chains in our past.
Yes.
But yeah, you don't have to have a traumatic life. And again, trauma for one person is not trauma for another. So
Correct. Yes.
it's so nuanced.
And such an individual journey, right? Because it's our individual lived experience. And so,
Yes.
it's different for absolutely everyone.
Mm,
Um, what I would love to know is, how do you ensure that your business and your life align? Like I said, I know you said before that, there's not a real lot of separation. You find that
mm,
passion and joy in both living and obviously in your working, which I
mm,
absolutely love. And I believe that that is something that I aim to help my clients create as well, is like, not having a business that you feel like you want to have a holiday from, and
mm,
but be able to really create that business in alignment with what it is that you value and what your vision
mm.
is. How do you ensure that you're really making sure both of those are aligned?
Yeah, well, there's actually a beautiful tool that I use, that I designed, called Values Track. And this is very much a snapshot of how your life is right now. And in that assessment, we look at the things that you love, what lights you up. So we look at certain categories, like what do you really love to talk about? What do you love to research? What do you love to acquire skills in? Or what would you love to acquire skills in? What do you love to contemplate when you're daydreaming? And what do you know a lot about? So when we look into those things, we're really discovering right now, what are the things that we're doing in life. So if I love travel and I love personal development and I love human optimization and I love all these things, they're the things I value. But then we go one step back from that. What feelings do I get from those things? Because this
Mm,
is the bit we miss.
yes.
Is it's the feeling that creates the change. It's the feeling that we're looking for gain. We do things for gain. And if we can gain more of a feeling, we'll do something more.
Hmm.
If we get less of a feeling, we do it less.
Yes.
It's the same with relationships, and everything we do, we really do it for a gain. As much as we wouldn't like to think we do, we do.
Yes.
So I really like to say, okay, what are the things I love? And what does that give me as a human being? And then I can see what feelings I really love to have in my life. Now, what I can do then is I can link the goals that I have to the values that I enjoy. How does doing this goal give me even more of what I love to talk about, what I love to research, what I love to contemplate? Because if my goals are constantly aligning with my values in that sense, not like integrity and honesty, they're
Yes.
values as well, but we're talking about tangible things that we do in our life. So
Hmm.
they're the things that have the feelings behind them. So I like to really keep in alignment. How are my goals constantly stepping back to my values? How does achieving my goal give me even more of my values? And this is great for people who maybe they don't know their purpose yet.
Hmm.
Maybe people get very hung up on, what's my purpose? What am
Yes.
I here for? And I think it's good to know that your purpose isn't a place, it's a daily state of being. It's how do you really, your purpose is to be each day
Yes.
in alignment.
Yes.
Like that's really your purpose. So you can start to look at where do I enjoy things in my life, and how can I connect the thing I'm doing to the way I'd like to be.
Mm,
And that's really, I think, key, because you could be saying, well, I could work as an accountant. And although that might not be doing the things that I think I might want to do, if that's my values, if I say, how does being an accountant give me even more of the things I value? Well, then I start seeing a gain to being an accountant,
yes.
and my life and my perception shifts.
Mm,
So that's how I constantly check in. It's like, how is my goal aligning back to my values and the feelings that that's giving me? Because if it's giving me the feeling, I'm firing and wiring these neural pathways in my brain and going, this is effortless energy. And this is where manifestation really comes in. It's like effortless energy. It's like,
yes.
how can I tap into that? So I'm moving towards things that I love all the time. And my brain's just going, yep, yep, yep. Give me more, give me more. And it's loving it. And this is a very easy hack. I call it habit hacking.
Yes.
And it's a great neural rewiring to do, to really tap into your love and your passion and move in a direction that is giving you the feeling now.
Yes, I love that. And if we could go one level a bit deeper on that, because
Mm,
I believe, as we've been talking about, a lot of people are very much disconnected from the feeling.
yes.
It's about being very much up in the mind and being very logical about, well, this is what I should be doing, or this is what I should be working towards.
Mm.
Can you give me an example of the feeling for you that sits behind these values? Like, what are the things that really light you up as far as a feeling?
Yeah, so for me, the feeling is definitely freedom.
Yes.
The feeling of freedom for me is probably the biggest value I hold. Sometimes that makes me a control freak. And that's the polarity, right?
Yeah,
Is that to
I
be
was just about
free.
to say that. That's, like two opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah, and we have both.
Absolutely.
We can have, and we need both. So I think this is such a big thing. So yeah, it's love. Like love is another feeling, and peace. They're definitely the things I want to feel. I want to feel at peace in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel that I have freedom. And even to create impact, even the feeling of like wanting to create the impact in this world, it still brings me back to the feeling of freedom and peace and love.
Yes.
I find that people's feelings, when you really, really, really break it down and you say, what is behind it all? There's really four things that people often revert back to, which is love, contentment, being content, being peaceful, and being free.
Yes.
And most people want those things, want those feelings, but we're constantly focusing on the how I need to get that. And I think that's where we've lost that path a little bit, is that the feelings are really the things we're going for. Even when we want lots of money, we really want security, safety, right? There that might be a feeling that we want. And again, that's peace. When I have safety, I'm peace. When I have safety, I'm
Yes.
peaceful. So it's
Yeah.
very interesting when you bring everyone back to the real crux of it all, the heart of the matter. Everyone's the same. We all want the same thing.
Yes.
Um, and it's how we go about it.
Possibly dressed up differently for people,
Very
right?
much. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, some people are seeking these things in an unhealthy way,
Yes.
and projecting a lot, and some people are seeking them in a healthy way. So
Mm,
it's very much you can go about receiving those things in a very different way.
absolutely. Yes. This has been such an incredible chat. I feel like we could talk about this all day. But one last question to finish up. Share with me what being fully aligned actually looks, feels, and means to you.
Mm. Being fully aligned for me is really having compassion for every step of my journey. So when I'm in alignment with myself, I'm allowing myself to be human. I'm allowing myself to make mistakes, to have bad days, to, feel the feelings of sometimes failure or like I'm not at my greatest, and really allowing that to be okay. Feeling aligned is for me knowing that I'm an emotional human being and I have emotions and that they fluctuate day
Mhm.
to day. And feeling aligned is also for me is being able to redirect myself when I'm in those moments, not by bypassing. And this is where breath work has been really profound for me, is that I'm being aligned for me is being at peace with who I am in all of my colors and
Mm,
all of my shades. And again, not easy. Don't succeed all the
right.
time.
Yes.
But the tools that I use, like human design, breath work, these holistic rewiring tools, they all help to bring me back to my center. And that's being aligned for me, is like in these moments of, fear, can I come back to myself? Have I got the tools to be able to recenter and realign and come back to the middle
Hmm.
and have so much compassion for who I am and why I am the way I am, and still move forward,
Yeah.
still keep going, still take the step, not through a place of force, but through a place of love.
Yes.
And yeah, that feels like true alignment for me. Is actually allowing all parts of myself to come through. And I've always said, keep it raw, vulnerable, and real. Like I'm not winning every day in my life, but when I'm
No
not
one
winning,
is. No one
no,
is.
no one is. No, I have days where I'm on the heap in the floor crying. I have days when I'm so fatigued and tired, and I thought, what is this teaching me? And how can I be more loving towards myself in this moment to
Mm,
move through those emotions and feel them? And that's what we've become very distant from, is feeling the feelings and knowing that that's okay. I
absolutely.
can still feel these feelings. I can feel angry. It doesn't make me an angry person. I can feel
Yes.
sad, but it doesn't make me a sad person. I can feel lost, but that doesn't mean I'm a lost person. And so it's like not identifying with those emotions, but feeling them and allowing them to be there. That is what being in alignment means to me.
Oh, I love that. That is so powerful. So, Claire, for the listeners, if they wanted to find you, where would be the best place?
The best place at the moment is definitely via Instagram. That's my platform that I'm
Yes.
mostly on. My website's being reconstructed because I'm a Manny Jenny.
Yes. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's never there. So, constantly updating. So yeah, my Instagram is the best, and that's the.abundant.soul. So there's a dot between the words,
Amazing.
the.abundant.soul.
We will make sure that we pop that in the show notes under this episode. I just wanted to thank you so much for joining me. It's been so nice to catch up and really deeply, hear about what it is that you're doing inside the Abundant Soul. It sounds like incredible work. And as I said, we will put all of your contact details in the show notes. But yeah, hopefully we might be able to do a hike on the Gold Coast very, very soon.
You can give your daughters a day off.
Yes.
And I'll come up. And thanks for having me, Kell. You're very inspirational to me. And I know that when I first started talking about this journey, you were very pivotal in having conversations and encouraging me to move in this direction. So I just want to say thank you as well for being somebody that I've always watched and learned from myself. And it's been really lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I am just so glad to have had this chat, to have known you for the last 6 years and to be a witness to all of the changes. I wish you all the best for your business success. I'm sure we'll stay in contact anyway. But until next time, thank you very much for joining me on Aligned with Kell Quarrell, and you will hear from me next week. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Aligned with Kell Quarrell. I hope our conversations have inspired you to be bold in the pursuit of your dreams. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with the business women in your life and took the time to leave a review. Your feedback is like an ice-cold glass of Prosecco, always welcomed and always appreciated. You might even consider giving the show a follow. Until next time, continue to take bold action towards aligning your business with your deepest desires.